Awesome. So good to connect with you, Eric.
Thank you.
If anybody's watching, I know a lot of you in the healing community or just even the manifesting or feeling good community know who Eric Rains is. Eric has a lot of experience in body work and also chi energy, uh, golden immersion frequency healing, parasitic removal. And I was so blessed to actually be able to go to a retreat a couple of years ago that was actually held up in Mount Shasta out of a weird coincidence, or I guess you could call it a synchronicity, of where Eric and his message got put in front of me through actually one of my clients. So I just want to introduce Eric Rains. I'd like to find out, what you're doing on your upcoming retreat, because I know that the retreat that I went on, and I brought my whole family, which is definitely something that I wanted to do, and it led to that direction, has made such a profound impact on me and my family and what I'm doing right now in life and what my wife is doing. It was actually like such a huge catalyst in what we're up to right now. So thanks so much for what you gave to us, and I'm excited to hear about what you're doing coming up in June and share with you some really incredible insights that I've had since that time. So thank you.
Yeah, you are very welcome. It's really, really fun to put stuff on like this and to see people like yourself blossom inside of it, because so pretty much what we do with these retreats is we show people how to tap into the mind, the body, and the spirit levels, and more importantly, start tuning into places that we just don't enjoy, that don't feel good, and then more importantly, learn how to release them and to transmute them into places that hold the basic resonance of what we want to experience in our lives. And when you can immerse yourself in this type of a frequency for as long as we do, it's a full week, and you can interact with all these people there who are on the similar life path and they resonate with you, it's like finding your soul family. And when you can spend a whole entire week in these types of frequencies and this type of an energy, it transforms you. It changes things. And what before seemed like insurmountable issues or things that you could never get over, all of a sudden those are little bumps in the road that you aren't even paying attention to, because suddenly you recognize what is resonating for you, what is the most powerful journey your life path can take on. And it's really fun to see people like you who step up into this place and experience these things and recognize, like, oh my goodness, like, I have power over this. I can take this any direction I want. And you guys really did some amazing stuff. It was really fun to watch you guys grow after the retreat.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So what we're doing differently from this retreat is I've actually been doing something called the frequency exploration class. And with the frequency exploration class, it's really been getting me not only to really cement in the frequencies that I use with the energy work that can achieve different things inside of the body. The specific frequencies, they work stronger inside of the neurological levels. Some work stronger inside of the energetic levels. And the more that you know, the more you can start to fine tune exactly what's going on inside and, more importantly, outside your body with the connection to reality around you. And so this frequency exploration class has just been absolutely a blast. I've been having so much fun with this. And what's evolving out of this right here is a really definite path for the energy work that we're going to be doing at the retreat. So we're also going to still be doing the stuff that you remember, like the Qigong, the yoga, the trauma release exercises. But the energy work is going to be on a completely different level, because not only with the frequency exploration classes have I been teaching and exploring different frequencies that are outside of most realms most people know how to access in the energy world. I've also been doing the foundations, the intermediate, and the advanced classes that show people how to do this energy work, and more importantly, do it remotely and distance-wise on each other. And what has evolved is the ability for me to walk people through the pathway of the words into the sensation and the feeling much, much faster. And I can get a whole group of people into an incredibly high vibratory resonance within the space of about a couple of hours now, as opposed to like when we did it with you guys, we had to stay in one spot for a day and then go to another spot for a day and then another spot for a day. What we're going to be doing is incorporating everything into just maybe 2 or 3 days worth of instruction, and then everything else is going to be practical application and techniques and things that we can do inside of cleaning out our genetic history, cleaning out the ancestral stuff coming down from programs that were passed down to us, and the karmic connections, you know, coming in here with nasty resonances from the past lives. Oftentimes people are just clearing and clearing and clearing and clearing, and they don't know why there's always something left to clear out. And it's because it's not yours. It's stuff that's coming from a different place. And when we find these connections and we start cleaning them out, there's, you know, instantaneous healing. It's really, truly amazing to see what is going on. And what's fun is I've got you and your frame of reference from the first retreat, and here we are 2 years later, and it has evolved so much. And, you know, we still have the foundations, we still have the basics of what we're doing that show people how to energetically break down and release from the physical levels all the way into the mental and the spiritual levels. But it's much more fine-tuned. It's much more, I guess you could say, acute. It's instead of like trying to go out and flood the whole entire field, we're walking right directly up to the plants and spot watering them now. It takes a lot less energy. It's a lot more precise, and there's a lot more that can be done, because instead of going and searching for what you need to take care of, we can tune right directly into it, take care of that. And instead of, you know, 3 or 4 days of clearing work, we can do that all in about 15 minutes, and then we can keep moving forward. So it's really, I'm excited about this one. I'm really interested to see how the group comes together when we start achieving these frequencies together in a dynamic multiplication type of an experiment, because we're not just adding our energy to each other, we're multiplying it together, and we're lensing off of each other, we're harmonizing with each other. And inside of that space, it's the immersion. You know, it physically changes your atomic structure. You become different. You become more. You understand more.
Yep. Yeah. So, do you want to hear some of the things that have been going on since I left Mount Shasta?
Oh, I would love to hear what you've been doing.
Yeah. So, you know, it's really funny for anybody watching. I had a friend from high school, and he referred me to a client. I do digital marketing, and sometimes I never know, you know, what kind of client I'm going to get. And at the time, he had me work with somebody that worked with dark energies and angels, and I was like, okay, I'm game. You know, like I believe in stuff like that, you know, energy, and so I started working with this gentleman, Greg, and I saw a video of Eric, and everything that Eric said, it was almost like I had heard it before somewhere, and the passion that Eric had, the way he was talking about it, I was like, wow, he really believes in like what he's saying. And I really resonated with it. So I remember I had actually called you, Eric, and I was like, hey, let me help you. And we talked a little bit about life, and you said you should really come up to Mount Shasta. I'm having a retreat. So it's kind of funny, because a lot of times in this busy life that we live in, we're always busy with so many things. And even just to get away and pull yourself out of the matrix for a couple days, let alone 8 days, is a really big challenge, because a lot of people consider, well, what's it going to cost me? Or can my family take the time off? Or, you know, I basically put my business on hold and not communicate with my clients. And then my wife, you know, she's busy too. And then I have a 9-year-old daughter. So at the time, I knew I had to be at your retreat. There was something inside my gut, like right in my stomach. It was, I don't know if you call it like excitement or anxiety, but I was like, I have to go, but how do I go? And how am I going to get my wife to go, my daughter to go? And, you know, for us to unplug for 8 days, and think about that. I mean, we live in a world, and we talk about freedom, and we talk about how America is the land of opportunity, but why is it that we can't literally take ourselves out of our life for something that would be better for us and go away and like unplug and actually reflect on life? So I remember going to my wife, and my wife's like, well, do we have to go that long? And my daughter had the same tune. And then something magically happened where our place got flooded, and we were forced to leave our place, and it worked out synergistically. And here we all are up in Mount Shasta, and literally I could not get my wife and daughter to want to leave Mount Shasta. And they were like, wow, this was so incredible. But what I can tell you is, I know going through that experience, because we live in this microwave mentality, like I want to take the magic pill and I want to leave and walk on water like Jesus. And, you know, is this going to solve all my issues? And I remember sitting there, and we were doing the yoga and the stretching and the Wim Hof breathing. And gosh, you know, like for a lot of people these days, just to be in one spot and to not be busy is an accomplishment, right? So I remember you and me, I'm like, well, when am I going to, like, okay, I feel this, I feel that. I was like kind of attached to a certain kind of outcome or experience. And it was hard to explain. Like I couldn't even open up my laptop. It was like there was a magnetic field around my laptop. And I was like, okay, I know I need to send a client an email, but no, I'm not going to do that. So it kind of like compelled me to stay in this space, which was like, in a way, I can't say that I could feel the contrast. It was like a process I was moving through. And initially, like you start to fight even being in one space and like shutting off all the technology and like unplugging yourself from this busy world that we live in. And I could tell you that by the end of that week, I was like questioning, why am I going back to LA? And what is important to me? And I remember at the time, I actually lost a couple clients from going there in that week, but I was okay with it. I was totally okay. I was like, you know what? They weren't aligned with me. And I actually got one client that superseded those two, like on my way back. And I was like, oh, well, there was really nothing for me to worry about. But I can tell you that going to Mount Shasta was such a catalyst. Like there was ideas that me and my wife had 5 years ago where we had created logos for companies and we had thought of these ideas, but we didn't act on them. And by us going on this retreat, like on the way home, we were just on fire. Like, oh my gosh, like we really need to get aligned with like what speaks to our insides. And I remember coming back from the retreat for the next couple of weeks, like I was having all these epiphanies. It was almost like memories or patterns from 20 years ago were like making themselves known to me. I remember even sitting in the bathroom one morning and I was like, oh my God, I was like, where did this voice come from in my head? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And questioning, and I'm like, wait a second. I've been listening to people outside of myself. I haven't been listening to me. And I was like, wait, why am I not listening to me? You know? And I was like, oh my God, that's so silly. You know, why would I not listen to my own like higher power and get distracted by what other people around me are saying when I knew from inside of my own power that what I was doing was right for my path? Like we all get this distortion that comes up in this really crazy way. And we don't even know that it's distortion. We don't even know that it's not ours, right? So I remember coming back and I started interviewing a lot of metaphysical people because that was the idea I had 5 years ago. I did an interview with you. I even interviewed somebody on remote viewing. And this is kind of a really funny lesson because I didn't know what remote viewing was, right? Like I had no idea. And this is what I'm about to share is about being open and how being open can be like maybe one of the biggest blessings in this world. And so many people have an idea or a judgment or, you know, they're trying to be right about something that they know, or this piece of knowledge that we picked up, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago that we carry with us. But sometimes holding on to that stuff can limit what comes into our space. So I remember I did this interview. I didn't know what remote viewing was at all, but I got to tell you that it blew my mind. And my mind was so blown that you could actually go into your subconscious and you could travel through time and space and you could gather information. I was like, what? I was like, is that even possible? Right? So I'm having an interview with this guy and he says, listen, if you put together like 6 people, you know, it costs like $1,000. I'll come out, I'll teach a class, you know, you can organize it. And I got to tell you, I hardly even tried to organize that. I just shared with a couple people about what I learned about remote viewing. And all of a sudden I had all these people give me money and they wanted to take this class. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't even try. It wasn't even that hard. And now these people want to take the class. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I'm like, I guess I got to get the place for the class and, you know, coordinate it. So I coordinated, and I got to tell you that the experience that I had during that remote viewing class, and I have no background in healing or I'm not, like, I don't call myself the healer or, I don't read tarot cards. I don't do any of these things. I can tell you that I probably have some intuition because I've used it all my life. I just didn't know that I had it, but it just comes to me and these come through the form of thoughts that I think are mine, but many times they're probably not even mine. They're this collective consciousness that's out there for everybody to actually tap into. So when I took the remote viewing class, the one thing that just blew my mind, I took the class and literally, it was almost like I went to Mount Shasta for 3 days after that, but there was nobody talking to me. I was like sitting in a room, almost catatonic, looking out the window. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, I think I missed something really huge in life because I'm like, what I'm in right now, this room, this office, this table, this chair, is probably the smallest piece that I've ever encountered. There's a much bigger piece to the puzzle. And I tapped into something that I realized it wasn't about me. Like, we all have access to this information. So as I watched other people that had no experience, I had a good friend of mine, no background in any kind of psychic stuff, literally sketch out a destination. The lady next to me, I mean, we had a hidden picture of a submarine. She was literally drawn a submarine. My mind was more blown watching other people than watching myself, because I realized that it wasn't about me, that we actually all have access to this information. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh my gosh. And then my life is synchronistic already because I look for connection. And that's something that I want to share a little bit about with people on, this call is about connection and disconnection. But when I saw that other people had the ability to tap into an information source that everybody has access to, I was like, wow, like, wait, there is no time in our universe. There's no information that we don't have access to. And we all have access to these unlimited resources. I mean, some days I get so much information that comes in to my brain from intuition that literally, like, I get overwhelmed because I'm like, oh my God, like, there's so many things that we could do on so many different levels. And now, the other day when I was just observing, I had taken a class and just looking at life, I almost feel like the guy in the Matrix that says, hey, look at all the machinery, see all these programs, these people. Like, not only can I see my own thinking, but I can look at somebody in their daily life and I could actually see a program running that's not even theirs. It's something that's been handed on to them by somebody in their family, or something they're trying to prove, or they're trying to be right about something, but it's like this cycle that they inherit and they get put on this wheel, and many people never get off the wheel. They're constantly on the wheel and they don't even know they're on the wheel. Mm-hmm. And you guys might think I'm crazy. Like, I can tell you that since I came back from Mount Shasta, there was some other people that I started watching, like Bentina Massaro and some of the other self-realization type people. And I can tell you that there was things that I heard before Mount Shasta that maybe I didn't really hear. And then after Mount Shasta, like, everything just became more vibrant and louder. And I got like a real sense of abundance. And then I just kind of opened myself up after Mount Shasta, and I just started surrendering to things that were coming into my space. And I mean, literally, like my income probably tripled or quadrupled since I went to Mount Shasta. But here's the question, right? Because there's a lot of people that went to Mount Shasta that were in this retreat. You've got to open yourself up, and you've got to get open, not attached, because attached to when you're attached, because there's many people in this world that always try to be right. And when they try to be right, what happens is they get attached to being right about what they know. And when they get attached to being right about what they know, there's this wall of resistance that comes up. And when the wall of resistance comes up, nothing can get through that wall of resistance, good or bad. So even if someone came to give you the biggest gift that you ever had in this entire Jehugic universe, because that resistance is up, you will not see that gift. So this is something that I've learned a lot lately. Like I took a class the other night and I was working with, I take from this teacher that actually worked with some very famous actors like Selma Hayek and Benicio del Toro and Greg Kinnear and Jason Momoa. I mean, these are people that make millions of dollars on films. And one of the students, he was trying to get feedback from the teacher. And it was very interesting to me because within that example, I saw an example of how the mechanism works in life. So here's a guy that's pouring his heart, trying to help somebody open up and get to the place they want to be. And because he was trying to be right about how he felt and trying to get the teacher to understand his point of view, he wasn't open to actually hearing what the teacher was trying to teach him. And within that racket, or whatever you want to call it, that attachment of being right, he completely shut all walls to actually receive that information that would help him get where he wanted to go. And so as I look at myself, even within communication, whether it be in relationships or work, you know, a lot of times we can want to be right about something that we think we know. And when we want to be right about something that we think we know, what we do is we actually shut off any possibilities of us learning or even receiving information that could even probably elevate us to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and,
you really just hit on so many beautiful points there. The resistance to the flow, like some of these techniques, some of these awarenesses that I teach here, these are some of the most groundbreaking, revolutionary, miraculous things you can ever start doing inside of your body. It's literally miraculous in the way that we can start interacting with our health. And yet, if you don't use these tools, then they're pointless, then they're useless. And when we get stuck on these ideas, these programs, these are all on the mental level right here. And so when we start to dissolve the mental level and we start going into the sensation and the feeling of it, everything makes itself known. Just like what you were talking about, like what you just broke through right there with the whole entire path out after Mount Shasta. It's typical of what happens, because once your golf ball sized awareness is stretched to this universal level, it's like you can see and hear the same things that you've heard before, and yet you understand and you get so much more out of them. But more importantly, you stop paying attention to the outside. You stop listening to the opinions that are on the outside, and you start listening to you. Right. And you will direct yourself exactly in the direction that you need to be in order to be a healthy, happy, productive human. And it's just so beautiful to see these realizations that spiraled out from this just 1 week. You know, this 1 week that led to all of this realization. But the actor, the class that you were talking about, that is such a beautiful point right there. Especially when we start tuning into other people who have not only been teaching these types of things, but have been succeeding just, you know, up one side and down the other. Oftentimes we go to those people, even if especially if we have our own expertise in that field, and we think that we know what's going on. And oftentimes that allows us to just kind of put on a cap that doesn't allow us to be a student. Because when you're a student, you want to learn, you want to know. And even if you are an expert in that field, going in with the mentality of a student and learning from that perspective, it actually teaches you so much more because you already know about it. And then you can take the tips and the tricks and the hints that you get from the masters in the other side of the field, and then you can apply them to what you're doing. And that resistance right there, as soon as you let go of that, it's almost like the universe pulls you into right where you need to be for your happiest, most abundant, healthiest, connective lifetime. And that is, it's priceless. You know, there's no words that can equate to the feeling of having a meaningful life, of understanding why you're here, And
Right.
more importantly, being able to control it and direct yourself inside of this reality. It's a level of gentle confidence that it parts any resistance in front of you, just because it's like light and shadow. You know, like if we try to shut down the sun by throwing a bunch of shadows at it, we're going to get nothing but a bunch of spent energy and no effect whatsoever. And
Right.
it's the same exact type of a thing. Like we have to learn how to become a sun inside of our reality, and then, you know, look around. Like I don't enjoy that path right there. That feels better. I'm getting hotter. That right there. Let's go in that direction. And as
Yeah.
soon as you can start tapping into that, magic happens. You know, and even if you feel like, oh well, I've got to do this email. I've got to email this client. You know,
Right.
if you're connected into the feeling and you're listening to the smart parts, which are not the words, but the sensation, it will let you know, like, hey, it's going to be okay. You just need to trust. You just need to, you know, take that first step and just trust that there's ground under there and you're not going to fall. And as soon as you do that, everything's taken care of. And the more that you're responsible in that level, and allowing that synchronicity and the abundance of the universe to just flow through you, the more you achieve, the more you can get, the stronger your manifestational abilities become, and the more that you can figure out. And it's, you know, thank you so much for that run through of what you've been doing here since Mount Shasta. It's just so fun to watch people who, you know, 3 years ago when we did this first one, you didn't know hardly anything about the energy world right here. And you
Yeah.
had like a logical understanding of it. But as soon as you left and you felt those sensations, you didn't need me anymore. You could start using them to create, or you could start creating them on your own to decode the understanding. And like what you were talking about with the remote viewing, that's how I get most of my information. You know, if I don't
Yeah.
know an answer to a question, I connect into the energy of it, and then I download the information and I translate and speak the energy. And so I teach myself oftentimes just by tuning in on that level, because I don't know beforehand on a logical level, but I can feel it. I can tune into it, and then I can translate it. And
Right.
we all have that ability. It's not just me. You know, I'm well traveled on this path, but anybody can crack that door open and start walking with us.
Right. Yeah. There's so much, you know, we just don't realize how many programs are out there, because see, we live in this world where we focus so much of our energy like on an external level.
Mm-hmm.
We look at like a job or money outside of us. We look at getting a car, that's an object outside of us. We get a house and everybody wants to own a home, and that's outside of us. And we feel like if we have all these outside things that we'll feel better. And then what happens is people get these outside things and they don't feel any better. Now they need something else, or they need something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a program, when I first came to the retreat, I was like, you know, a lot of people, and it's so funny, I shared the retreat and I get a similar reaction. And I said, well, we heard about parasitic implant removal or alien implant removal. And a lot of people, they can't comprehend that. They're like, alien implant removal, parasitic implant removal. And I thought about this to reword it in another way. So if you thought of a program that you inherited from a traumatic experience 30 years ago that got embedded into your body, almost like a tick or a parasite that lives in your body and now drains the energy, because that trauma pulls on all the good stuff in life, because it's got a filter that has basically cascaded this illusion over your perception based on that traumatic experience, then I guess at that point, you wouldn't actually be seeing clearly. You would be seeing through this filter, which is like a parasitic illusion that covers your what you see, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times,
excellent explanation.
So a lot of times what happens is these program, and people go, what's a program? I mean, gosh, I put a program on my computer. And it's so funny, if you look at my little title on here, I put Q 11.0, because lately I've been thinking I got to upgrade my program, because the program that I had was so outdated, or let's just say my program that I had was repeating a mechanism from the past. Therefore, I had no future. It was predictable. And so in order to open ourselves up to something brand new, we need to come from a place of nothingness, of no judgment, no opinion. We have to come from love. We have to come from openness. Well, many of us, if you've ever been in a relationship before and you've had something that happened, good or bad, we typically tend to carry that into other relationships. So there's so many things that we can't see on an eye level that we can't relate to because we relate everything on an outside external level. We never, I mean, when's the last time you saw your family members, Eric, when they go into the mirror and they brush their teeth, they're brushing their teeth and they look in the mirror and they go, I wonder how my mindset program level is. Am I coming from the right place today when I land with the people that I love? Or do we not think about that and just let the decay and mold build up on our program and just walk through life and going, well, that's me, right? So, I mean, but if you showed up and let's just say you didn't change your underwear, you didn't take a shower for like the last 10 years, that wouldn't be okay, would it? And I think,
not at all.
You said this best when you set it up there that, and I feel the same way that you feel. I could walk through a mud pit and I'd rather be dirty and inside, internally, energetically be alive than to be the cleanest person on earth with the dirtiest mind on a way that keeps me so stuck in scarcity and fear and, all the problems that could happen to me because I'm kind of already dead. Even though I'm the cleanest person on earth, I'm dead up here, which basically now I'm going through life in an automated program that somebody fed me or programmed me with directly or indirectly. So we really need to take you really need to kind of take a checkup from the neck up and understand where is it that you're coming from? Because even in your space, and I can give my observation, there's a lot of people in the spiritual space that are always looking for the problems. Like Greg Braden said it best. I read a book after I got back from Mount Shasta. It was called The Divine Matrix. And Greg Braden said, you manifest what you look for. And as I talk about that, I was thinking about talking to you today and I said, what do I want to talk about? And something came to my mind and I thought about people's emotions. And emotions are so powerful. It's like, I was just talking about actors. Why is it that somebody can say the lines and there's actors out there that make no money, not even $1. They try to become an actor. And why is it that somebody else can say those same lines and make $20 million a picture?
Because they feel it. It
has to do with their emotions, their feeling, and what they bring to their words, just like what you bring to your life. So I thought about that because we talk a lot about vibration. And a lot of people, if you're not in this space, you might not understand what vibration means. So this is something that I thought about. So in the world that we live in today, probably the biggest challenge is the inundation of social media and news and external programming that gets fed into our mind on a constant basis, just over and over and over and over until it becomes a pattern. And so what happens is we get into this subjective state of stress, which is like, oh my God, the world is burning. Oh my God, the world is dangerous. Men against women. Love is good, love is bad. Someone's trying to take advantage of me. And we live in this constant state of fear that basically doesn't have us feel happy and love. It actually puts us in survival mode. And I was looking at these levels of vibration as you look at the world today. And when you're really sad and beat down and you feel hopelessness, being angry is like a couple of notches up, right? So what happens with anger, and this just came to me today, is there's a lot of people that have hopelessness based on the external world. If you watch the news, you'll get depressed. If you watch social media, you don't even know if it's true, but it goes in here and it goes around in your brain. And unless you're monitoring your mindset, you're just going to take it on, just like a cold or a virus, right? So now what happens is a
very good way to describe it. Virus is exactly what this is.
So now people, they get a virus of the mind and they don't know they have a virus. They just think, I got to take care of myself, because one of the states of fear is the survival state. It's fight or flight. So they fight off other people and they also avoid other things too. So when you get into this survival state of just taking care of yourself, it's not like we have a tiger chasing us that's about to rip off our head. It's just that we're constantly fed this programming, this virus, this, call it mind control, whatever you want to call it. And people don't even know it's mind control because in a way it's kind of invisible. It's a mindful virus, right? It's not like someone's beating you with a bat, but we're beating our brain and our thinking with a bat. And then people get into this state of anger. And I thought about this and I was like, wow, you know, I'm sure anger can become an addiction because it's 10 notches up from hopelessness and depression. So if we're angry, have you ever been angry and you felt more compelled to do stuff?
Oh yeah, anger is
Like
an incredible motivating force.
Like somebody pisses you off and you're like, F them, I'm gonna do this for myself. You start cleaning, you start, you know, putting your stuff in order, right? It fuels you, right? And some people get locked into that addiction of anger. So what they do in life is now they go and find things to be angry about. They find ways to become the victim. Because if you're right about somebody else being wrong and you're a victim, then you're justified and then you have no responsibility in your life. You're just basically at mercy to all the crazy people that are out there, right?
Yeah.
And so when you do that, energetically, you're not taking responsibility for creating your life, for creating your world. And so I see a lot of people now getting into these patterns where you're like, why are they doing this? You know, why are they in this constant cycle? You know, like I look for connection. You know, I'm a lover, like I'm a connector, like I'm all into connecting with people. But why is there so many people out there right now that don't want to talk to people and don't want to connect with people? Or, you know, they've gone into a state of just worry about yourself and I'll just worry about me and be selfish and the hell with everybody else.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is they're shutting down the flow of resources in the world because you are me and I am you. And the guy that calls me to give me a lesson, whether I like it or I don't like it, is a gift. Mm-hmm. But if we don't receive the gift and we're always there pointing about this person's wrong or boy, that Eric Rains, you know, he's just always positive. Man, he smiles. He just smiles so much. I can't relate to him, you know? It's just, right? And it's not you, Eric, it's me, right? Mm-hmm. It's me having an issue with you smiling because of some program I have in my mind that says you can't be happy. Exactly. Life has to be hard. We have to struggle. We have to burn all bridges. We have to burn relationships and burn opportunities. And because if we don't go through the trauma and all the hardship, then we can't become successful.
Exactly. And see, right? these are 100% those programs that you're talking about. And these things aren't things that we even talk about. We don't experience them from a mental level. It's like the trigger happens, we have the feeling, and all of a sudden our previous traumas, the programs that are passed down, they have us speaking. They have us doing these specific activations of energy, of emotion, of thought processes. And right. So it leads us into these places to where there's a denser and denser field of energy to eventually you get to that very hopeless despair level where even jumping up 100 points right there into anger is comparatively way better than it is down here. And right. That's all about the mindfulness. It's all about going into and understanding the language that your body actually communicates with. And, you know, just like you were talking about earlier, you know, how often do we brush our teeth and sit there and say, well, where's my mindset at? Where is my energetic level at? Like that is one of the most important things you could ever be doing. And the simple awareness of being able to do that, it separates you from being in this knee-jerk reactive state, completely and totally programmed with all of these things that as soon as this emotion's here, you're acting like this, or as soon as this emotion's here, you're doing this thing. You know, and when you connect in on that and you see like, oh my goodness, I don't feel happy right now. I'm really, really upset. And right. I'm thinking about this right now. Oh, okay. And then you start looking into why you're upset about it, what you can do about it. And then more importantly, how to shift and transmute the energy, and you shift the program. But it's right. all about the mindfulness. And if you're sitting there looking on the outside for things to go wrong, that's all you're ever going to find. Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. We need to know where the things are that are blocked up, that are messed up, that are nasty. But the major difference between being aware of that and focusing on that is that I can be aware of something over here and I can put my energy and intention into something pure and beautiful that I can build up over here. And now when I'm focusing on that, this builds up so much that I can move it over here into where it's all blocked up. And it's like flipping on a light switch. And it has no choice. It's the simple fundamental laws of the universe. Light transmutes shadow. Like there's no other way around it. And it's an as above, so below type of a thing. And the more information we have, the more flow that we have, that is light, because light is information, darkness is lack of information. And the more light we create, the more light we can connect into, and more importantly, embody. And when we embody that, it takes us from a space to where we're a knee-jerk reactive program to where we can start recognizing the simple things of outside of the words, simply this doesn't feel good, and this does. And if this doesn't feel good, and yet this does, if all I'm doing is focusing on this, I'm not cultivating what is pure. And that's as simple as that. And when you start really actively tuning your programs into creating light, to creating movement, to creating dynamic flow inside of you, everything shifts. It doesn't really even have a choice. It's natural law. It's natural order. You know, the darkness and the heaviness, it cascades and transmutes into what you want it to be. But you have to point your direction into where you're going and start heading in that direction, because otherwise you just stay there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much available to each and every one of us. I mean, whoever is watching this right now, everybody has access to receive.
Everyone.
Everywhere. I mean, there's so many resources out there. And, you know, if someone's watching and you have a story, well, like, that's easy for you to say or whatever. It is, and it's easy for everyone. But you got to be open to receive it. You know, it's kind of like if somebody came up and gave you the greatest gift, but your mindset is totally attached to, I don't have enough, you know, woe is me, you know, my life is horrible. Like, you'll never see a gift. You'll never see a gift. You know, I think it's just so important to just purge all the bad thoughts that you have. I mean, most people are so caught in the cycle of survival that they can't even look inside their own emotion and go, why am I feeling like that? And why am I so attached to being upset? Or wait, where did that thought come from? Yes. That's not my thought. Or wait, this is a program that my dad did to me. Why am I doing this?
Exactly.
Right?
Oh my God, I'm becoming my father. You know, that same exact thing. I'm becoming my father. It's because.
But what do we say? I don't want to be my dad. And you think about how you don't. And because there's pain and energy involved in those thoughts, you create it. So it burns into your pattern. And then subconsciously, you become like that. You know, it's so funny because, you know, if you ever tell a kid, and you have kids too, if you ever tell them not to do something, you usually put a lot more passion and amplitude on that. You know, like right now we live in this information age, and it's so funny because you have to be careful what you say with your words, because your words, I'm not saying being super analytical, but I'm saying being mindful. Like my daughter, Uma, she came to the retreat and she's got a curious mind and she's, you know, incredible. And, you know, me and my wife, like when we talk now, we have to be careful what actually comes out of our mouth, because she can just go to Google and Google it.
It's a different age nowadays.
If she doesn't know it. And so I'm like, well, we have to be careful what we say, because if she doesn't understand it and we say a word, now that is imprinted in her mind, and the curiosity alone, she'll go look for it, right? So, and I'm not saying I'm not saying come from control, but I'm saying being mindful, like, you know, like, again, I'll use like the acting class, you know, the teacher said, listen, I feel like you're trying to get it right. You're trying to get an A, right? Like, where does this program come from, right? You're trying to get an A, or you're trying to get it right. Like, we have a school system that talks about getting good grades, and all the energy is put on getting an A.
Yeah.
And getting it right. And it basically has this program that if you get good grades and you do well in school, then you'll do well in life. And the reverse of that is, in this class, the teacher said, well, where did you get that thought that if you do it right, you know, because being authentic and coming from an authentic place is not about getting it right. It's about actually listening to your feelings more than your mind. And so we live in this world. I mean, it's actually bad for an actor to try to get something right, because if you're trying to get it right, it's not going to come across in any kind of impactful way. What comes across is when the feeling comes through your heart and you can understand words, and that the words are not about the words, right? Like, you know, you've got to break the rules in life, because the rules in life have been set up by other people. And I'm not saying do bad things. I'm just saying you have to start asking yourself questions like, who told me that, and why is that true? Or why are words so much more important? Like when I took that remote viewing class, they actually said that words is your ego that tries to put things together. So if I gave you a word, Eric, and I misspelled it, let's just say it was, I don't know, ATIM, you might think of the word atom and say, well, maybe I misspelled it. And so in remote viewing, we're taught to listen to the feelings and the descriptors and what we feel, not the words, because your mind can play tricks on you. Your mind can make something mean something else because it's trying to be right. And so I think the key here is to get energetically aligned. I would say the biggest thing I learned up in Mount Shasta was about breath work. When we were doing the Wim Hof breathing and just breathing and meditation, like I find myself every day saying, I need to go outside and get some fresh air.
Yeah.
I need to go take a walk and get some breath. I need to center myself, because, man, you could just get thrown into the tornado of life. And if you don't ground your energy and come from a vibrational place where you're aligned with your energy force and your breath and moving your body and getting that chi going, you're already got the odds against you. So you got to really make sure that you're centered from the inside out, especially if you want to accomplish anything. And I mean, something so simple as breath that we don't even think about. You know, we don't consciously think about breathing. We just do. But if we consciously think about breathing and we make it a priority, we do so much better.
Well, it's one of those things that it's a base program too. And when you start to understand how the fight or flight and the rest and relaxation programs physically start to work inside the body, you can actually shift yourself to the point to where you are constantly consciously breathing inside of yourself. And each conscious breath has the opportunity to push blood flow, to push positive resonance through physical levels on the lymphatic, on the pulmonary, on the endocrine levels. And you can physically start healing your body with these types of frequencies here. And if you start tuning into the programs and understand how to rewire them and turn them on, you can make it so that the 50, 60,000 plus breaths a day that you use are actually stacking towards your consciousness exploration, to your health, to your understanding, and more importantly, to your rejuvenation, because we can live a lot longer than conventional science says that we can, consciously, without machines, without technology. We can do this in our own bodies. And by simply tuning into the mental programs and starting to decode them from that level and bring it back into that deep body level understanding of that breath work, of that internal communication on the myofascial levels, that's what starts to really immerse everything. That's what starts to expand all of this and open it up into the place to where you can have these epiphanies of understanding that let you see behind the veil, because that's all it is. It's just getting awareness of what you don't have awareness of. And each time that you do that, it's another breakthrough that allows you to feel that next layer on the outside that as soon as you can feel something, no matter what it is, you can tune into that. You can turn up that volume dial. You can demand to know because your consciousness can decode it. And that's what this is all about. You know, we just one step into the next, into the next, into the next, and we follow the sensation into what feels good, into what feels pure, full of joy, full of unconditional love, full of excitement and connection and empathy and compassion. And then we start to cultivate those. We turn up the resonance, and it creates a field of energy so powerful and so strong that it changes the physical structure of the body. And, you know, once you step into that flow, it's like the universe is constantly shining light on you. You're shining light outwards, and so it's bouncing it back thousandfold. And there's no limit. There really isn't. The sky is truly the limit with all of this. So, you know, I got to say, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the retreat with me, Hugh. It was really fun to talk to somebody who's already been through one of these and see the difference in what we're doing right now compared to what was happening then. And even then, it was still just so incredibly powerful. And I'm just so excited to see what happens this year. And thank you so much for coming on here and talking.
Yeah, what days is the retreat in June?
So we're going from June, I believe the 29th, all the way to July 6th. So it's a good 8-day chunk right there.
Cool. Yeah, I think what you said about just the last thing I was going to say, I think people should they should really be focused about centering themselves from their heart. You know, we live in a world today, again, where we're bombarded. I mean, constant technology and cell phones and computers and news and social media. We got to get really tapped into our heart. And that's actually a project that I'm actually working on, a project that has to do with healing and unity and coming from how we could actually source each other from our heart. And I think we are all connected. I think somewhere along the way, someone said we're separate and we have our own identity. And I think there's so much that can be done as a group, coming together, not only in the world and relationships and everything. And it's, I think now more than ever is a good time for people to get aligned with the work that you're doing and really just understanding what serves them, like on a real, you know, like a feeling good level. And it's so essential. It's almost like, you know, it's so simple, but it's also so simple for people to not see it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Sometimes we think that we need like that encyclopedia of all these instructions on how to do it. And in reality, it's so simple that when we do it, and we experience the results, it's like, really? Like, it's that easy? Like, are you serious? I thought it was so complicated. And it's not. It's really, truly not. It's very simple. It's very easy. And anybody can do this type of work. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up here.
Cool. Thank you
so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on here. And if you have anything else that you wanted to say, go ahead and say that right now.
No, I encourage, if anybody is watching, to make the time for yourself. I mean, you're your most valuable asset in your life, and you've got to put yourself first.
Yeah.
Too many people right now are so driven to attachments and arriving at some point. And listen, if you're not healthy when you get there, it's not going to matter anyway.
Exactly.
You've got to make the time for self-love. And if you don't take care of you, then how's anybody else going to take care of you?
Beautiful. And see that right there, how much is it worth to you? You know, money is one thing, but time investment in our society, it's a lot harder to do. And when you prioritize something on this level and you say, all right, I'm going to spend this much time immersing myself in this type of a field, in this type of a frequency, your body recognizes just from that motivation and that commitment right there that, hey, it's time to grow, it's time to change, it's time to do something. And then inside of that, when you're transforming on the level that we do, there's a lot that goes on. So I really hope to see everybody watching here at the retreat. And I thank you so much for this, Hugh. I'll talk to you next time, bud.
All right, cool. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.